Attention. Due to the nature of the films discussed, the Civil Gore podcast may contain adult language and themes.
Oh, wow. Tim sent me a gift. That was awfully nice. Let's see what we have here. Oh, cool. It's a Hellraiser puzzle box. Neat. Wait, wow, is this thing a fancy replica? It moves and everything. Wait, what's happening?
You called upon me, mortal. Now prepare to feel the true meaning of pun and suffering.
Pinhead? Pun and suffering? Don't you mean pain and suffering?
No, pun and suffering. You can call me Pinhead now. I'm dabbling in stand-up comedy.
Oh no, Tim sent you to me as revenge for all my horrible puns. This is terrible.
Correct. Or, as my mom exclaimed when she first saw my face, nailed it.
You even got a drummer?
Oh, that's just Chatterer. I got him those on sale because they were broken. But for the price, you can't beat it. You can stop now, Chatterer. I guess some folks just aren't into soul music.
Why are you doing this? Why?
You've watched my films. I enjoy pain and suffering. I once caused an explosion at a cheese factory in France. Debris was everywhere.
Ack. Stop. Who's that big guy over there?
Oh, that's Butterball. He's psychic, you know. Some people call him a fortune teller.
I've got to get out of here. Where's the door? Why is it so dark in here?
Someone stole all the lamps, and I couldn't be any more delighted.
No!
Don't worry, Brian. This won't hurt a bit. We'll simply chop off all the limbs on your left side. It will cost you an arm and a leg, but you'll be all right.
Must fight back. Hey, Pinhead. You know why you never got a rug to cover up that bald head of yours? Because then you'd have hell to pay.
Wait, no!
Hey, Butterball. You think you're a glutton? I once ate an entire watch. It was time-consuming.
The agony!
That's right, Pinhead. If you think you're gonna bury me with your jokes, you've made a grave mistake. I was once tortured by a group of minds. They did unspeakable things to me.
No! Stop!
You think you can scare me? I had a fear of speed bumps once, but I slowly got over it.
Enough! Enough! You win! Even hell is preferable to this torture. Continue on with your little podcast. You torment your listeners more than I ever could.
Good riddance. Oh, and you might want to update your wardrobe. Looks like something out of the Hades.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to episode 67 of the Civil Gore podcast. I am your host, Tim.
And I am your host, Brian. And I know it's only been a week since we recorded last, but it feels kind of like an eternity. And I think it's because of some of the movies we suffered through here.
Yeah, we watched 7 movies in the Hellraiser series for this particular episode, which was quite a marathon, I'll have to say. They almost kind of blend together after a while.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like I've watched nothing else but that for the past 7 days or whatever. Oh, it's brutal.
Yeah, so tonight, of course, we're going to finish off our Pinhead SUMMER SLAYCATION series with the last 7 films in the Hellraiser franchise, which are, of course, Bloodline, Inferno, HELLSEEKER, Deader, HELLWORLD, Revelations, and Judgment. We're going to pack it all into one episode.
Yes, so you could either be really excited by that or really dreading it.
Yeah. But first things first, it's our first chop. Okay, Brian, I saw a documentary that I've been really dying to see, and I just stumbled across it. It was on Hulu, actually, and this is the one that came out a while back called 7852 Hitchcock's Shower Scene.
Oh, yeah, I want to see this.
Yeah, so this documentary, going into it, it's an hour and a half, and I was thinking, how can they do an hour and a half just on the shower scene, which seemed to me just a little overkill. Well, in fact, it's not really all about just the shower scene. There's a lot about Hitchcock himself, about Psycho, about Janet Leigh, so you get a lot more than... Don't go into this thinking it's just a complete, total boring technical breakdown of just the shower scene. While that is the primary focus, there's tons of stuff in here for Hitchcock fans and Janet Leigh fans. Jamie Lee Curtis is interviewed.
Oh, cool.
A lot of like Elijah Wood as an actor. They had different actors come on and talk about the Psycho's influence on them, different directors. So it's really entertaining if you're a movie fan, a Hitchcock fan, and especially a Psycho fan.
Oh, nice. It's almost... maybe I'll try and track it down to watch for before our next Summer Slaycation. That might be a good thing to touch on, too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. You guys, if you have Hulu, go check it out before we start our Norman Bates series next week. So... and then the Alphabet Project continues. This one, man, I picked a great one for this one. And I went back and forth. And I finally settled on a 1955 film, Les Diaboliques. Oh, God, I just murdered that. Les Diaboliques. So this is a very Hitchcockian film. In fact, Hitchcock almost had the rights to this movie. So we may have seen a Hitchcock version of this had he been a little quicker on the draw. But instead, a French filmmaker got a hold of this one, and it's really, really great movie. I cannot believe I had not seen it before now. Definitely a classic. This one is about two friends who run a boys' school, and one of the friends basically is browbeaten by her really obnoxious husband, who's just a real a-hole. And so her friend kind of convinces her that they can murder him and get away with it.
Oh, this sounds it's so Hitchcock sounding.
Yeah.
It's like Strangers on a Train kind of thing.
Right, yeah. So she convinces her friend or assists her friend in helping to murder the husband and hide the body in a pool to make it look like an accident. But the body disappears.
Oh.
And that's where the Hitchcockian twist comes in, and I won't give any more away. So, but yeah, spectacular movie. I really loved it. Now, it is in French, so you'll have to deal with the subtitles, but highly, highly recommended. I saw this one on Prime, I believe.
Oh, okay, good. I have to put that on my watch list.
Yeah, well worth it. I think it'll probably become one of your favorites after you've seen it.
Oh, cool. I will give it a shot.
And then today, Friday the 13th, which is an apt date for this episode to drop, we have Joe Bob Briggs is coming back to do a monster movie marathon on Shudder. Nice. And let me tell you, man, I used to watch Joe Bob Briggs back in the day. This was back when internet chat rooms were a big thing.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I would get on these internet chat rooms, and we had a way to I think it was Merc was the
oh my God, I remember that.
You remember that?
Yeah,
or MIRC, what we just called it, Merc.
Yeah.
But you could actually play sounds on other people's computers as long as they had that sound file. So what you would do is you would get a sound file you liked, and you would share it out, and everybody would download it. And then during the movie, you could trigger that sound file, and it would play on everybody's computer that was in the chat room simultaneously. Okay. So it was almost like a collective Mystery Science Theater 3000 kind of thing.
Oh, that's cool.
So we would watch the movies, and then, somebody would be killed or something, and you'd hear, "Game over, man, game over," from aliens coming out of your computer. It was really, really cool, really funny. And that's where that's probably like when I first really started getting into internet and social, not really social media per se, but social chat rooms and that kind of thing.
That was social media back then, really. I mean, if you think about it, that chat rooms were it, and then AOL Instant Messenger, and you had all, there wasn't any Facebook or Twitter or anything like that back then. That's what you had. So it was,
Yeah, so I'm able to definitely. Yeah, obviously, I can't sit there and check out this whole thing.
No,
it's going to run for several hours, but I will definitely pop in and check that out. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Are they gonna by any chance? Are they gonna like record it all, like his things, and replay it? I wonder.
I don't know. Honestly, I have not read up a lot about it.
Yeah.
I just saw the date and I was like, well, I'll definitely just check it out Friday.
Oh yeah, it's good to pop in. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So I don't know. I hope they do. That would be fantastic. So.
And he followed us on Twitter, by the way, Joe Bob Briggs.
Did he?
Yes,
really?
he actually
Awesome.
followed us like first too, which was like blew my mind because but I'm thinking back in the day and like I remember him from when he did those things. I'm like, oh my god. I think I thought I had told you, but I guess not. I was so excited. I was like, oh my god. And the people like some people I told at work, they were like, who? Because they're younger.
Yeah,
so I'm like,
knows.
oh god, forget it. I tried.
So that'll be fun.
Yeah.
So next up on the rundown, the Child's Play remake Backlash. I think I'm going to join this Backlash
I am
movement.
absolutely. I usually I am like the whole. You know how I feel about the Last Jedi one. I am so annoyed by that. It seems like nowadays anything that comes out is going to have some kind of backlash to it. Most of it's stupid and unjust. This one though, I like you, Tim. I could stand behind, and Don Mancini himself is behind this one. Because especially when I don't understand when a series is still going on, they would feel the need to reboot it, especially when now the original people involved are still going on with the original series.
It doesn't. The timing makes zero sense.
Absolutely. Obviously someone there, whoever at MGM decided this was a good idea, really has got to have they have to check to see if he's qualified to be in his position, because I don't get it. They have and in the series, the last entry into the series was really strong, and I know you and I loved it, and it's leading into a TV series with the original people behind it. Why would you reboot it? I don't understand. I'm wondering. I'm anxious to see if they still go ahead with this, seeing like all the social media backlash that has gotten on this. I haven't seen one person say good idea. I have not.
And it's not like the Halloween series where you had so many false starts and changes in plot and this and that. It was a cohesive series of movies that have all generally been very good.
Right.
And the last two were essentially a reboot, if you think about it. So why are you trying to reboot this again? It makes absolutely no sense. And I don't even understand why are you like, what are you going to do to improve upon it?
Yeah, I heard it was going to be a new high tech version of the doll, which is that's even dumber. I mean, come on, how do you make a doll higher tech? What is it going to have lasers now shooting out of it? I mean, the
original Chucky's pretty darn good.
He is. And, even back then the effects were good. And they've gotten only better through time. They've advanced the story the way you want. It's still going strong. But no. We're going to try and I guarantee you that thing is going to bomb. That will bomb. Because especially when that series is the TV series is going on simultaneously with Brad Dourif involved. Who's going to watch? Who are they going to get to voice it? That's what I want to know. Like, can you imagine? It's like just if they don't get Brad Dourif, it's just not Chucky. I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's like it's just like the horrible non-Robert Englund Freddy Krueger,
right? Yeah, and I feel bad because Jack Earl Haley is a phenomenal actor. It wasn't his fault.
I love him.
He's one of my favorite
Freddy
actors.
Krueger.
He's not, and it's not his fault. Not everyone can be Robert Englund. I'm sorry. It's like.
Anyway, before we get too enraged, our blood pressure goes up too high.
I know.
We do have a fun triple feature coming up from our good friends at Retro Picture Show. Tell us about that.
And actually tonight, as you're listening to this, they have their great Part 6 and Part 7 of Friday the 13th going on. I wish I could have gone to it, but I will not be able to. But yeah, they got another one announced, and it's Demon Night of the Demons, and 976 Evil, which is, that's a great triple feature.
That is.
And it's like, how did you ever, 976 Evil is not a movie, you would thought you would really ever see in theaters, because you always remember the box art back in the video store, and you always remember, maybe seeing the Blu-ray cover and stuff. But when do you actually think you get to see that on on the screen. And then, of course, the original Night of the Demons is another one. And, I mean, most people probably saw Demon Night. That's probably the one that a lot of people will... The most common one that saw in the theater. Yeah. And of course, this one I want to go. It's September 29th. It'll be the week after we get back from our exciting trip to Halloween Horror Nights. But so maybe it might be a nice thing because I'll probably want a nice easy weekend after that, and that'll be a Good Friday. It's September 29th. Starts at 10. And like I said, I cannot say enough good things about the Retro Picture Show. For horror fans, it is the best thing. Tim, you got to come down at some point to one of these. You got to definitely, I mean, they just continue to do events. The people there that run it are just awesome. The theater is cool. The people there that you meet are really cool. It's just a great night. I have to show up almost and just like start doing the Crypt Keeper voice when Demon Night comes on. You know?
Yeah, there you go.
Like, welcome! You know?
Oh, that's great. Yeah. And then we have a more fun horror news because I think you're going to try to get the Chiller in October.
Oh, yeah. And I already confirmed because... Of course, my Chiller buddy, my brother Seth, is moving out of town, so he won't. As far as I know, he won't be back in town during this point. So I will. I already tapped on our good friend Steve Cohn. He says he's down for it, but not for. It's funny. He's more excited because there's a Love Boat reunion also at Chiller.
Oh my God!
So I think he said he wants to get his Airplane DVD signed by Jill Whalen. You know. Who played the girl that that had the
well, that's kind of cool. Though.
Yeah, that is a cool thing, and cool. You got the whole cast from the Love Boat, which is funny. But the thing that drew me to this, that has almost a guaranteed visit to this, is David Howard Thornton, Art the Clown himself, will be at Chiller, and you know how Tim and I felt about Terrifier, the movie. It was one of my favorite horror movies I've seen in years. David Howard Thornton is awesome. He's got a great social media presence. You definitely should follow him. So he's going to be there, which is awesome. And also Gina, I hope I'm pronouncing your name, or Gina Cannell, who played Tara, the main girl in that, is going to be there with him so far. So who knows? Maybe they may get even some more people from that cast. But I definitely have to go see and get a cool picture with Art the Clown, David Howard Thornton. Yeah, and he's just a cool guy. I mean, we've interacted with him a little bit on Twitter, and I just see that the way he interacts with other people, you could tell he's probably such a cool, down-to-earth guy to hang out with in person, to meet. So I definitely have to do that, and I'll try and go get some cool pics from it.
Cool. Sweet. Yeah, that sounds fun. All right, so let's get right into our dismemberment.
Wait, no, please, God. No, don't cut off, please.
These are the Blu-ray releases for July 17th, 2018. Not a big list this week.
No, but
I got a break from our wallets, but that won't last long.
No, not well. We have to save for October, that week where it seems like every single movie we ever wanted is being re-released into a special edition. But
so this one we'll go a little easier on your wallets. The first one up is called Enter the Devil. This one's from 1972, released by Massacre Video. I'm not sure if we've had that one.
I was going to say, I think that's a new one, and I definitely like the name of that. That's good for horror films.
Yeah, this one is directed by Frank Q. Dobbs, starring Joshua Bryant, Irene Kelly, and David S. Cass Sr.
I think that guy's got enough S's in his name. Geez.
Enter the Devil is a great American-made B-horror movie. People are disappearing in the wastelands. An occult researcher discovers that a devil-worshipping cult is responsible. Her inquiries lead her into great danger. Who can she trust? Very well acted by a cast of unknowns. Gritty and atmospheric.
Is that who she encounters?
It almost sounds like a Hellraiser movie.
It does.
That description.
It does. Maybe they grabbed that script from one of their sequels. We just don't know.
Yeah. Oh, you know what else is missing this week? Special features, because I couldn't find any for most of these. But anyway, this one only has a 2K restoration, no extras.
Maybe the bonus feature will be Cat O' Tails.
Don't get me started on that. Oh my god!
Which is available, by the way, streaming. What did I show?
Is it on Prime? On Prime.
It is. On Prime. So you know what? Forget anytime we ever give a release date. You don't need to buy it. Just go watch it now already.
I'm like boycotting Cat O' Tails.
Yeah.
It has literally been listed like almost every week for like a year.
It's like either there's 82 releases or they just can't decide.
They keep pushing it back.
Yeah.
The next one up is Doom Asylum from 1987. This is an Arrow release, directed by Richard Friedman, starring Patty Mullen, Ruth Collins, and Kristin Davis. And yes, it is that Kristin Davis from Sex and the City. Yep, it is. Very young. Kristin Davis.
Ah.
Synopsis: a demented coroner uses autopsy equipment to kill off the teenagers who trespass on the long-abandoned asylum he inhabits. Filmed on location in an actual abandoned asylum.
Well, at least you're going to get the good set design, I guess.
Yeah, I'd like to see this one just for the Kristin Davis. I love seeing like stars in their early roles.
Yeah, and boy, I'll tell you that, I gotta say, if there's one redeeming thing that you could say through all the Hellraiser sequels, even the bad ones, you find a lot of that. You get a lot of people in their first roles, or at least early roles, that you now see big time today.
And the more embarrassing, the better.
Yes, I agree.
The next one up is this is your pick of the week, Brian, also mine. This is the release of Truth or Dare, which came out this year. But this is an unrated director's cut.
And that's why it cemented it to my pick of the week.
Yeah, because I heard mixed reviews on this one, but maybe, sometimes the unrated director's cut kind of gives it that extra edge that turns it from kind of mediocre to good. So
well, wasn't it PG-13? Was it a PG-13 or was it R, at least?
It might have been PG-13. I don't remember.
It had that feel to it, whether it was or not.
Yeah.
So, and it didn't do well. So I'm glad that the unrated director's cut. See, when a movie does poorly and then they release a director's cut, it always intrigues me because I'm wondering if it did so bad because the director was forced to take out some stuff.
Right, yeah.
Versus, when a movie's great and then they release an undirector's cut, I'm actually a little hesitant because I'm like, well, it was so great. Could this, because sometimes I've seen director's cut that ruin it.
Oh, there's been many director's cuts of like really great classic films that were terrible.
Yeah.
But anyway, this one's directed by Jeff Wadlow, starring Lucy Hale, Tyler Posey, Violet Bean. A harmless game of truth or dare among friends turns deadly when someone or something begins to punish those who tell a lie or refuse the dare. Now, this one does have some special features. Obviously, the aforementioned unrated version also has some featurettes and an audio commentary with director Jeff Wadlow and actress Lucy Hale. So that should be interesting.
Now, I have a question. Does Tyler Posey, do you have to say it like Adam Sandler pronounces Parker Posey? Like, and Tyler Posey.
I think we should.
Well, from now on, we will.
I wish I had thought about it.
Yeah, it's okay. We'll get back.
Tyler Posey.
Yeah, and
Violet
Bean actually is not as famous as her famous sibling, which is Jelly Bean. So that was
or her dad, Mr. Bean.
Yeah. But when she has a little bit of the ganja, she becomes never mind, baked. Hold on, I messed that up. I messed it up. Damn it!
Have you been smoking the ganja?
No,
Brian?
I didn't. But I'll try it again. Let's see. And when, of course, when she smokes a little of the ganja, she becomes baked bean.
Okay.
And we're done.
And we're done. Seacrest out.
Yes.
Drop the mic. And the last one on our list is The Housemaid from 2016. This is a Shout Factory release, directed. Oh God. Okay, so this one is This one looks like maybe.
I know how to pronounce the director's name, by the way. So if you
Guyan?
No, it's Wynn. That's how you say
Wynn,
it.
really?
Yes,
okay,
yeah.
So it's Derek Wynn, Nguyen.
Yes.
Which I should know that because I've had coworkers with that last name.
Yeah, that's how I know. I have through.
Starring Kate Nung, Jean-Michel Richaud, and Kim Wan.
Why is there like a French dude in there?
It's a random French dude, isn't it? Yeah. When an orphan Vietnamese girl...
It says, if we just waited, look.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, when an orphaned Vietnamese girl is hired to be a housemaid at a haunted rubber plantation in 1953 French Indochina, she unexpectedly falls in love with the French landowner and awakens the vengeful ghost of his dead wife, who is out for blood.
I think this was on... I think this was on Amazon Prime or Shudder, one of them. I think I've seen this, actually. Crazy enough, I think it was one of those ones I've seen. It was on maybe like a year ago.
That's such a strange setting, though. Like 1953 rubber plantation in French Indochina. That's so obscure. But it intrigues me. It sounds cool.
Now, is it when they say rubber plantation? Is it like the Trojan factory, or is it just literally?
I'm hoping it's like the rubber plants.
Oh, okay, yeah, probably. You're right.
53, yeah. It's not that kind of movie, there, Brian.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's true.
So anyway, no theatrical releases this week, unfortunately. But we're getting there. Halloween is approaching. So,
yes.
All right, so let's get into our main feature. We got a lot to cover here, boys and girls. We'll get things kicked off with Hellraiser Bloodline.
Yes.
This one was from 1996, directed by Kevin Yeager, written by Peter Atkins. It's going to be a long night, guys.
Yeah.
Kevin Yeager, written by Peter Atkins, starring Bruce Ramsey, Valentina Vargas, and Doug Bradley. Summary.
Yes.
It's the year 2127. And everybody goes, oh no, Pinhead in space. Although it's
Pinhead
not
X.
as bad. Yeah, it's not as bad as you would think.
Yeah.
So Pinhead, the evil Cenobite of the series, the only one,
Yeah.
apparently?
Apparently now he's the only one.
Has found himself on board a space station in outer space run by scientist Dr. Merchant. Dr. Merchant's mission is to close the gates to hell forever, because his ancestor, a toy maker in the 18th century, Puppet Master crossover, built the evil puzzle box that opens the gates to hell, and through the generations, the family of the Bloodline has tried to stop it. But now, Dr. Merchant has built the reverse box, the box that will close the gates to hell instead of opening it.
Oh, is his family just not really, like, good with ideas that it took them this long to finally come up with a reason?
He comes from a long line of procrastinators. We'll do it next century.
Yeah, you know what? That's my son's problem. We'll let him deal with the puzzle box.
I'll let my grandkids do it.
Yeah. And by the way, I have to say, I know it says directed by Kevin Yeager, but you know you're in trouble because he went as Alan Smithy in this, so you know That's like, okay, that's the kiss of death for any kind of movie.
Yeah. I kind of listed him out of spite.
Yeah.
Just to be mean and cruel. But he really basically disowned this movie.
Yeah.
It had to be finished by another director, right? I believe.
I think so.
Another guy had to come in and finish it.
I wish he could have finished me watching it. I could have called someone else in to watch. Yeah, seriously. I mean,
that's why Julie has to be your sub.
She walked out.
Oh
no, she didn't get. Yeah, she wouldn't even come. She sat through only one of them with me, and that was Judgment. And we'll get to that one later. But this one is. I think she saw a little bit of this, and I think she walked in, probably saw that it was in space, and just shook her head and walked out. I mean, I knew I was doomed from that moment.
We kind of had an idea to go through these a little quicker.
Yeah.
We'll give you some little, notes here and there about the movie, but we're pretty much going to go through our likes and dislikes.
Yeah.
So we'll kind of go back and forth. Just a few little notes here. It has a pre-fame Adam Scott, which is in a colonial wig.
Yeah, and it was funny because when I was watching it, I was like, "Hey, that kind of looks like Adam Scott." And it sure was, because if you notice, he's got to be one of the actors where there's so many fake Adam Scotts out there. He's got one of those faces that like started as a generic face and I guess turned into a regular face because there are so many people I've seen that I think is him in movies, and it turns out it's not. So this one, much to his own dismay, was him in this.
Yeah, so this one, just an interesting trivia. This one was once optioned to be directed by Guillermo del Toro, who declined wisely.
Yeah, can you imagine?
Although it would have been much better film.
I know, I would say, you know what? I'd love to see what he'd do to it. I bet he'd actually have it really, it might be watchable if he was in there.
This was the last entry to have Clive Barker's direct input and the last Hellraiser entry to have a theatrical release. They were all direct-to-video.
I wonder why this doomed the series.
We already talked about Kevin Yeager removed his name from it, but this one was plagued with budget issues, and much of the film's script was either cut or never filmed at all. Apparently, now, according to the writer, the original script was really, really good, and I can kind of believe it. You see hints of how good this could have been.
Right, because the origin story of the box is something you've always wanted to see. So the fact that it had that in there and just, you know what, and you'll see this is a common theme I noticed as I was going through my notes, that in the basic story of most of these, there's something there. It just seems like the delivery and, of it was bad. And that's the shame of it, because you look, some of them, like you said, the hints of it where it could have been really good, but for some reason they just could not do it. I don't know.
Yeah, my likes, I like the historic segments, I like the lore of the box, and if you read the plot line, like I went and read the synopsis after I watched the movie, just to make sure I didn't miss anything.
I know, I've done that a lot in this series.
And when I was reading, I said, this sounds like a really cool Hellraiser film when I read the synopsis, because you have Pinhead battling, to prevent this box of light from being created, and you got all these kind of cool motivations and stuff going on, and it just never coalesced into like some really good film. It's just, I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And it's like if you'll find that in a lot of the sequels, which is weird. And it's I don't know. I'm not sure what the reason is behind it, but
Although I looked at a lot of Hellraiser rankings of all the films from various sites because everybody's got their own opinion.
Yeah.
And I just was not prepared. I know you've got your ranking kind of in mind. For me, I could not wrap my head around this series enough to really do my own personal ranking. I mean, I could probably take a stab at it, but Bloodline is typically rated pretty high behind 1, 2, and 3.
I saw that. I don't get it. I don't.
The only thing I could think of is maybe because it has so much of the lore.
Yeah, that could be.
Compared to a lot of the other films, this has way more actual Pinhead stuff than a lot of these films do, as we'll see shortly.
I mean, this by far was not. I mean, this wasn't the worst to me.
No, not by a long shot.
So
yeah.
Oh wait, I didn't do my likes and dislikes, but it's pretty much the same as Tim's almost. The origin of the box and the historic parts, and like Tim, we both dislike just about everything else of the film.
So that brings us to Hellraiser Inferno from the year 2000. This one was directed by Scott Derrickson, written by Paul Harris Boardman and Scott Derrickson, starring Craig Sheffer, Nicholas Turturro, and James Remar. A shady police detective becomes embroiled in a strange world of murder, sadism, and madness after being assigned a murder investigation against a madman known only as the Engineer.
It's funny. I want to say that. I'm looking at my notes, like my little notes that I have on my screen. This actually I wrote the most notes on because there were so many things that I had issues with this one.
Yeah, so this one, my immediate reaction was David Boreanaz is in this, and I was like, what? Because they show a close-up of his face. I actually thought it was him.
No, it's Craig Sheffer.
Yeah, I know, but when they pulled back, I was like, oh, that's not him.
Yeah.
So is that how, am I saying his name right? I always screw his name up, Boreanaz.
Boreanaz, no, that's it, yeah.
Boreanaz, yeah, so,
but it's...
yeah, so I called him the poor man's David Boreanaz. Well, I had not read any articles about this movie. I went out and was looking at reviews of this movie, and somebody else called him that exact same thing. So I'm not the only one.
There you go.
But anyway, so yeah, this starts a trend of movies that were owned by Dimension, or scripts, I should say, that were owned by Dimension that were not Hellraiser scripts. They turned them into Hellraiser scripts.
This one probably the most obvious, I think, out of all of them.
Yeah. So this was literally going to be a completely unrelated movie, and it was they basically rewrote it to shove some Cenobites and Pinhead in there, which is, as you might expect, did not come out great.
No, in fact, I was saying it was like it felt like the whole time like it was someone was doing a really bad impression of a David Lynch film, specifically like Mulholland Drive. It reminded me of remember they were looking for the cowboy in that.
Oh yeah.
Well, this one is
the
Engineer, and it had the in fact up until when Pinhead finally came out and they just saw the other creepy images and weird stuff. I was like, okay, this is like a really bad version of a David Lynch movie. It's just at least his stuff has some kind of I guess really impressive visuals to it, but this was just
Yeah, so my likes on this one, I really liked they had some really creepy demon Cenobite sequences. There were some cool, they had those wire twin, I think they call them the wire.
Yeah.
Wire twins or something. Those were really cool. So, I loved those creepy sequences. What I disliked is you don't see Pinhead until the last 20 minutes of this movie, 25 minutes.
Yeah, that's inexcusable.
It's irritating for a Hellraiser movie to not even see the main bad guy until the end. Especially, now at this point, Pinhead is now the star of the franchise.
Yeah. It was the worst timing for this version to come out. It really was. And, and it's there was... so my likes are pretty similar. I like the one demon with the head and just the arms crawling around. That thing was pretty cool, and I liked that Nicholas Turturro was in it. And I put a note down here. I'm like, and nothing against him because he's actually one of my favorite actors. But when you see a Hellraiser, there's something wrong when you get a Hellraiser movie and you say, "Hey, the best thing about it was Nicholas Turturro." It's
true.
like, what the hell? That should never be uttered in a sentence in a Hellraiser film. But he was great in it. But and the dislike, same thing, the lack of Pinhead, and way too many of those film noir voiceovers.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you say, it was 7 o'clock in the city, and I was walking down, and I stepped in a puddle. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. That does not belong in a Hellraiser film. I am sorry. And you know what is funny? I saw so many people that were defending this, saying, I'm glad they did something different. I'm glad. I said, yeah, but you know what? My argument to that is, okay, I'm all for doing something different, but make it a Hellraiser film different. Don't make it another film and then sprinkle in like flakes of Hellraiser in it.
Exactly.
This is not feeding fish. You don't just tap the top of the tank and hope a little bit of Hellraiser falls out into the bowl. No. You make
and the fact that we know for a fact it was a non-Hellraiser script.
It makes it even worse because you're like...
It makes it worse.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So that brings us to yet another non-Hellraiser script. So this one was Hellraiser Hellseeker from 2002, directed by Rick Bota, written by Carl Dupre and Tim Day, starring Dean Winters, but Ashley Lawrence is back.
Thank God.
And Doug Bradley.
Is that ever a more welcome image than to see her, after watching the Inferno, is to see her face back on the screen?
Even then, this script never had Ashley Lawrence returning as Kirsty Cotton. This originally was going to be a completely just unrelated woman. Doug Bradley persuaded Ashley Lawrence to come back for this movie. So that is the only reason there is any kind of tie back to the original Hellraiser films.
No, and I heard he said what he got her to do is he goes, if you don't, I'm going to force you to watch Inferno over and over again.
Yeah, that's probably right, yeah.
If I had to do it, you're going to watch it. Yeah, no.
So, Kirsty Cotton is now grown up and married to Trevor Gooden. Her memory of the events that took place back at her parents' home and the mental institution have dimmed, but she is still traumatized. One fateful day, the two get into a fatal car crash, killing Kirsty. Now Trevor finds himself in a strange world full of sexy women, greed, and murder, making him believe he may be in hell. I don't know, that sounds pretty good to me, except for the murder part. He follows the clues all the way to Pinhead. Yeah. So this was the second non-Hellraiser script to be turned into a Hellraiser movie. So what do you think of this one, Brian?
See, to me, though, this one worked. I don't think you would have necessarily... They did it well enough that you wouldn't necessarily know it wasn't originally a Hellraiser script. Because I liked how they tweaked it in. And see, this is where I could see them trying something different and it working a little better. I actually liked this one. And now I will say, because, Ashley Lawrence and Dean Winters, who I like both of them. I think they're great. But, so it was good to have them, them in it. And it kind of at least you didn't get, you had something you felt was familiar to the franchise in this one.
Right, yeah. And it had a lot of cool, creepy sequences. I liked it was a very twisty and turny plot, which I liked. It might have been it might be a little bit overboard, but I went with it. I thought it was fun.
And I was into this one. I wasn't like looking at the time to see how much was over, how much was left.
Right, yeah.
Like I was Inferno, so.
Personally, I dislike there's a very big over-reliance on dream sequences. And what I mean by dream sequences is basically you don't know what's real and what's not.
Right.
I mean, I understand in a Hellraiser movie that's kind of par for the course, but in this one, it just seemed like every scene I was like, well, he's going to wake up now and it's not going to be there. And I mean, it just happened over and over.
Yeah, at some point it was like a few too many, because then you're like, all right, well, when's he waking up? Here it is,
Well, it kind of robs you of the tension when you just expect it to happen every single time.
Right, yeah. I get, and I kind of liked, there was a cool thing where they the whole movie was in that blue-gray filter kind of thing. And which was kind of cool, because that kind of made it a little uneasy all the time. It was a little like, I want to adjust my color on the TV, but
I didn't. Yeah, I can say I wasn't. When I finished Inferno, which again is kind of weird because you see, I noticed looking at the rankings that I didn't really agree with a lot of the rankings.
Yeah.
I tended to like some of the ones other people didn't like and not like the ones people did, because Inferno's typically rated fairly high.
Really?
And I just Inferno kind of just pissed me off because of the lack of Pinhead in it. But I kind of liked Hellseeker. I
did
enjoyed
too.
This one.
I did too. I mean, like my likes were obviously with the return of Ashley Lawrence, like I said, and Dean Winters. And what I disliked is not enough Ashley Lawrence.
Yeah, she's not. Yeah, she's in it, towards the beginning and the end, but she's not really an integral part of the plot.
And I actually met Dean Winter once before, briefly. He's actually a really cool dude. It's really nice.
Really?
Yeah,
That's cool.
And but tell me, so in the beginning, when they drove the car off into the water there, did you expect him to come out and go like, "It's mayhem. I'm gonna sell you some Allstate insurance," Because he's always jumping in front. I was like, "Oh wow,
This
is
right,
where he
yeah.
got his mayhem."
Yeah, that's exactly where he got that.
Yeah,
gig.
that's where they saw that in this movie, and they said, "You know who'd make a great mayhem? Dean Winters." So.
Well, next up was a year later, Hellraiser Deader from 2003. This one was again directed by Rick Bota, written by Neil Marshall Stevens and again Tim Day, starring Carrie Wurr, Paul Rees, and Simon Kuntz. don't,
Close
Brian,
enough.
don't. Close enough. We're just going with Coons.
Yeah,
I'm saying Coons.
We'll go to Coons.
In London, after investigating crack-addicted junkies for an article in her newspaper, the journalist Amy Klein watches a bizarre videotape. Her editor, Charles Richmond, received the footage of an underground group of youngsters in Bucharest apparently becoming zombies through the power of their leader, Winter, from a member, Marla, and invites Amy to prepare the story. Amy accepts the challenge, and once in Romania, she finds Marla dead with a puzzle cube in her hands. She brings the object to her hotel room and opens it, beginning her journey to hell. Now, this one was filmed back-to-back with our next movie, HELLWORLD, but they're very different films.
Yeah.
This was the third non-Hellraiser script rewritten to be turned into a Hellraiser movie.
Yeah.
What'd you think of this one?
You know what? This one, when it started, I had better hopes for it than it turned out to be. Again, it was one of those ones where I liked the premise of it, but it fell short on delivery again. Like, it just seemed like something was off by it, and I don't know. I mean, again, I thought it was a little better than Inferno. It was more Hellraiser-ish, but, I don't know. I just think it was, like, it was like the premise was cool. Like, I liked the idea, and I know you did too. Like, the resurrection cult was kind of a cool idea, but I don't know. It just, it definitely did. Like, you could have basically removed all the Hellraiser stuff, and it probably would have existed as a movie too, just like you said.
Right, which it would, would have.
So, like you said, it did feel like pushed into it again, but
yeah, I kind of liked, if it had been just another reporter trying to investigate a murder thing, it'd have been too similar to Inferno. But I did like the cult angle. I thought that was kind of cool. But again, we get another movie where the Cenobites and Pinhead seem to be felt just crammed in at the end. So I'm basically watching an hour and a half movie for an hour or more waiting for Pinhead. And I just could not stand that they just, they save all that for the beginning. Now, when Pinhead finally comes on the scene, I thought it was decent. I mean, I like the kind of final showdown type stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, this one to me kind of like, I did not find as interesting as HELLSEEKER, but I enjoyed it more than Inferno. So but it's kind of like a middle of the road for me. I came away just kind of like middle of the pack.
Like, it wasn't like, it was definitely watchable, but like Inferno, I don't think I could watch again, but this one I could watch again. I did like Carrie Wurr being in it because she was always, remember that she was like a staple in the 90s in these kind of like R-rated movie things where she would always seem to be naked and so that was kind of like a flashback. Not necessarily that she was naked, just to see her again was kind of like a flashback kind of thing. It's kind of nice. Although it wasn't bad to see her naked, but yeah.
So,
not gonna lie here.
2 years later, we get Hellraiser HELLWORLD, again directed by Rick Bota, written by Joel Suisson. A lot of S's there.
Yeah.
Starring Lance Henriksen, which I thought was awesome.
Yeah.
Catherine Winnick and Christopher Jaycott, and a very young Henry Cavill, Superman himself.
Pre-Superman.
A very young version. Yeah. Pre-Superman. Now, before I go into this plot line, let me read the synopsis first, and then I'll tell you what the reviewers thought. The youngsters Chelsea, Allison, Derek, and Mike are grieving the suicide of their friend Adam, who became obsessed with an internet game called HELLWORLD. Their former friend Jake blames the group since they have not stopped playing the game even when Adam was unstable. When they receive an invitation to a Hellworld party in an isolated mansion, the reluctant Chelsea decides to join the group, and they surprisingly find Jake in the party. He explains that he was invited by a girl he met in a chat room. They are hosted by the owner of the place, who shows them his private macabre collection. Along the night, they find that they are in a party in hell. Now, if you go look at the rankings for this one from various sites, a lot of people despise this movie. Some rate it last.
Really?
I don't get it. I really like this one for some reason.
Yeah, me too.
This script again was not, I don't believe, was originally a Hellraiser story, but it was adapted from a short story. So it's a little bit different than these pre-written scripts that were just shoehorned in. They basically took a short story and made it into a Hellraiser script, which is a little better. It's a step up.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one, first of all, it had the meta thing going on with the Hellworld game. So in this world, maybe Hellraiser kind of exists.
Yeah, like you don't know if it's real or it's just people.
Yeah, like people knew what the puzzle cube was.
Right,
and, but this one had, even though it was 2005, it has this really strong 90s, early 2000s horror movie vibe. And I'm talking like, for example, House on Haunted Hill.
Oh, yeah.
That remake. I loved that movie.
Me too. That's been getting talked about today, actually. A lot. I saw Lisa Loeb tweeted it because they were doing that Shout Factory re-release of it.
Oh, yeah.
And she actually tweeted, she goes, I was in the remake.
I love that movie. And I Know What You Did Last Summer. And it just has that kind of feel to it. And I don't know exactly how to put my finger on it. I guess it's the teen party vibe, probably, is what I'm picking up on.
The mansion, like where that was a big thing where everyone ended up in a location like that, and there was that was kind of a 90s, pretty much a 90s plot point.
Yeah, so for some reason, maybe it's just nostalgia's sake, I kind of like that, and I love Lance Henriksen, man. I watch him in anything.
Yeah,
that's
the thing.
Awesome.
Yeah, and he was like true on, full out, like Lance Henriksen, that really creepy. And and it's funny because this movie reminded me a little bit of there are two movies that kind of harken back to for me a little bit, which was a little bit of Halloween Resurrection for me, about how it had that whole thing. And do you remember the movie Brain Scan, where like they were playing that computer software thing, that, like it had a couple of those, and those were two movies. I know like everyone makes fun of Resurrection, Halloween and stuff, but I still had I always enjoyed watching it because of that cool meta vibe, when they do, because you'd always wish like, oh, that'd be cool to like hang out at Michael Myers' house for an event or something, it kind of, and like same thing, like if like, who wouldn't want to go to, like, a cool Hellraiser-themed party if there was a really cool Hellraiser video game out there? So it's like, I think that's part of it for me, too. I kind of like that aspect of it. And, yeah, like you said, it's like, like Tim and I are very nostalgic about the 80s and some parts of the 90s, so it's like when a movie captures that pretty good, it kind of automatically, I think, ups it in some points right there. But,
right. Yeah, and I think if you did not grow up in that era, or or younger, maybe you might not pick up on that. The other thing I think people may not like about this one is it's probably the most mainstream out of the Hellraiser movies in terms of being like a typical horror movie, because it really, in a way, mimics a lot of slasher films. Yeah, you have a group at a party and they get cut off from each other, and then they end up getting killed one by one. So it kind of has that same Hollywood formula to it that most of the other Hellraiser films, if not any of them, have. Yeah. So maybe people are not liking that. In my case, I just, I didn't mind it.
Yeah, and you know what? Also, I think this series kind of needed something a little bit more like that at this point after the previous sequels that were, hit or miss. So, right. Maybe it needed it a little bit to get people back to the enjoyment of it. I don't know.
Yeah, and I put on here, the cheesy 90s horror that I liked. I also had it as a dislike. Funny enough, but
yeah,
because there are aspects of it, of those 90s horror films, that are just bad. So, it definitely has those elements as well. You take the good with the bad.
Right.
So, it's a strange film. I liked it for the nostalgia aspect. It's not a good movie by any means. I don't want to give you the wrong impression that it's a great, fantastic entry in the series. It's not. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I found it kind of charming for some reason.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way. It's like, and it's again overall, if you look at it, it had a decent premise, but again, it fell short as a film. But doesn't mean like it's not enjoyable. And obviously, Tim and I have our reason why we found it enjoyable. Some people may, like Tim said, if you don't have that nostalgia, maybe you think it's a piece of crap. I don't know. But, and it's also, since we're watching all these in a bunch, too, that also could be part of a little bit of addedness to it, because, like, the other, like, like, Deader was kind of, so-so, but Inferno was so bad. I don't know.
There is something to be said for watching movies back-to-back like this. You're going to get a different experience than you do from somebody that sees one of these every couple years or whatever.
Yeah, that is an advantage and a disadvantage. Advantage, obviously, because you're getting, you're not like, you're kind of getting the whole piece and everything's fresh in your mind. But then again, it's a negative. Everything's fresh in your mind when you're thinking of the bad ones, and then one that maybe if we saw this, when it came out in the order that it was going, we would have said, it's just another one that fell short, kind of a thing. But like I said, like charming's a good word for it, because there's obviously something that we found in it to make it enjoyable, and that's really all that matters in the end. If we, if you find something to enjoy a movie, then who cares what anyone else thinks of it, really?
Yeah, I think Brian and I have always been the type that, or I think we're kind of glass half full people when it comes to films. We tend to be film optimist, especially when it comes to horror movies. So I tend to not dwell on what I don't like, and I typically will try to find the good in it versus trying to pick apart everything bad about it. Not that there's not fun in doing that. I like a good bad movie just as much as anybody else. Yeah. But especially for the podcast and stuff, I like to try to find the good in these movies, because if you're gonna, why make yourself miserable? If you're gonna watch a movie and spend 2 hours of your life on it, why take a negative attitude and just kind of go in and setting yourself up for misery? Although I think we both kind of set ourselves up thinking this was going to be just a terrible, grueling exercise. I have to say, like, overall, it was not as bad as I thought.
No, it wasn't, because there were some movies that in there that I kind of like, and overall, as a franchise, it's still an enjoyable franchise, and I kind of have a new appreciation for it. But mostly because, of just a couple of the common elements that seem to be, like, obviously Pinhead is a great villain, because he's not, even though, there's rumors of him branching out to doing other careers. Overall, his main career, though, is pretty good, I think, and it's like, and it's, his shtick, let's say, is good. Like, they don't overuse him. In fact, they underuse him in many movies, as we discussed. But, like, the way he comes in and the type of character he is not like your typical horror villain. And so he's, so I think that's part of it. What a lot of the draw to him is, he's a unique horror villain out of a lot of, compared to some of the other big icons in the in the horror industry. Yeah.
Well, that brings us to my pick for the worst entry on the list, and Brian dodged this bullet, believe it or not.
I did. I got lucky.
This one's hard to find. Very hard to find. This was Hellraiser Revelations from 2011, directed by Victor Garcia, written by Gary J. Tunnicliffe, starring Seven. I don't know if I meant Steven or if that's actually Seven.
Was it the girl from Full House or no?
I don't know.
Oh no, that wasn't Seven. No, what was Seven? That was Blossom. Seven was the girl, right?
Oh yeah.
Sorry, wrong 80s sitcom.
That was what George Costanza was going to name his kid. Too,
that's right. Seven.
Nick Eversman and Tracy Fairway.
Oh, no, Six. I'm sorry, Six was the girl. Boy, am I bad in my 80s.
Yes. Seven was Seinfeld.
Seven was
Six
all
was
Seinfeld.
Blossom.
Yeah, that's right.
Two friends discover a puzzle box in Mexico which unleashes Cenobite Pinhead. Now, here's the thing about this movie, and this is why it's so bad. This thing was filmed in 11 days, and it was only made so Dimension could keep the rights to the Hellraiser franchise. They were on a deadline. If they did not have a Hellraiser movie out, they were going to lose their rights to the franchise. So they just slapped this piece of crap together
Oh, that's bad.
to keep the rights.
And funny you went to 11 because I was going to actually throw this in and I forgot, but now you gave me the segue. That would be if I had to name a future child of mine a number, it would be 11 because that's my number. So just a little trivia
Was
there.
it 7? No, George was 7, right?
George was 7. I like 11,
Yeah.
but of course now after Stranger Things,
there you go.
I'm going to look like I'm copying that when I had that well before because my favorite baseball player was number 11 and one of my favorite hockey players, Mark Messier, was 11. So, now I'm going to have to go to my overall favorite hockey player with Adam Graves at number 9, but 9. 9 doesn't sound right for a kid.
There was a movie called 9 as well. And
I know. I'm just never going to win now. That's it. Going back to names.
Well, this one, man, there was nothing I liked about this movie. The Pinhead in this movie, oh my God. This is the first time Doug Bradley does not play Pinhead. I told Brian it looked like they got freaking Bob from Craft Services to come over and sit in the makeup chair and put the Pinhead makeup on. This dude looks nothing like Pinhead.
And not even on the box art. Like,
no,
I saw
he
box.
looks like a... Yeah. He's got like a round head. He looks like a chubby version. I said it looks like Cousin Ronnie or somebody that comes over for Thanksgiving or whatever. Like this, it doesn't like. I've seen cosplay that looks way better than this guy in full film makeup. So nothing against the actor. I don't know. God bless him. I'm sure he did what he could, but terrible. Thankfully, he's not in it that much. Yeah. Thank God. But
good thing since he was Bob from Craft Services, he does make a great turkey sandwich for everybody.
So, I'll give it that.
Yeah, I did
great
read that.
Great potato salad.
Yeah, I read that in the notes. So yeah.
But anyway, this one, I don't even remember that much about it, honestly, because it was so terrible. Like it was just bad. By far, to me, this is by far the worst one I saw, and the fake Pinhead was the least of its worries. Yeah,
I like fake Pinhead. Yeah. So not seeing it, my likes are that I apparently got to skip it.
Yes.
And what I disliked is that upset my friend Tim.
That's right.
So much that he forced to watch it.
Yeah. Thank God it was only 90 minutes because I don't think I could have taken much more of that one. Just better left forgotten. There's a reason you can't find it anywhere. Yeah. So
at least seems like Gary J. Tunnicliffe redeemed himself, though.
He did. Yeah. So next up is 2018's Hellraiser Judgment. Now, I was very excited to see this one because it's finally a modern. Not that 2011 isn't modern, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
it's a modern
like
Hellraiser
this year,
film.
For God's sake.
Yeah.
It's like the current year.
It's a true Hellraiser film. Like this is not. It wasn't to get the rights for the movies. It wasn't based off a short story. It wasn't. It's an original Hellraiser script.
Yeah. So
could they pull it off? So it was directed by Gary J. Tunnicliffe, written by Gary J. Tunnicliffe, starring Damon Carney, Randy Wayne, and Alexandra Harris. Detectives Sean and David Carter are on the case to hunt down a gruesome serial killer terrorizing the city. Joining forces with Detective Kristin Edgerton, they dig deeper into a spiraling maze of horror that may not be of this world. Could the judgment awaiting the killer's victims also be waiting for Sean? Now, on the surface, this plot sounds like, oh God, not
again. Another one of these shoehorn Pinhead movies.
And what did you call it, Brian? What did you and Julie?
Oh yeah, so Julie and I were lovingly referring it to as Law and Order HVU. Because it had that feel of, even Julie's saying, she goes, if you look at the shots and the video, it seemed like those TV crime shows, or Criminal Minds or something. It's like
a what do you call it, procedural? Like a police procedural. It very much has that feel to it. But there is a striking difference. No, there's a striking difference between this one. This one has some tremendous gore. I mean, it starts off with like some really gruesome stuff that really shocked me. Not in terms of shocking, like, oh, the gore was so amazing. It shocked me that it was in a Hellraiser movie. Yeah, put it that way.
Yeah, and I dare to even say that this may have been the best opening in the entire series of out of all the films, because it was such a shocking, like, different, like, view of it. Like, whatever played that, what was this, the Assessor? Was he called?
Yeah, or the Auditor.
Auditor. I know they had names for everybody in this. Yeah, the Auditor. That character was awesome. That guy, I love that guy. He's got those like weird those aviator goggle things on or something or whatever they call those.
I say gore, and you're probably thinking, well, all the Hellraiser series has gore. What else is new? But it's a very different stylistic type of gore, because the other gore in the Hellraiser series, most of them taking place back in the 80s and 90s, it has a kind of this cheesy feel to it.
Yeah.
This was like, the only thing I could compare it to was like a Nine Inch Nails video.
Yeah.
or a Tool video, if you've seen any of those. It has that kind of like gritty, ugly, nasty, dirty feel, human centipede type feel to it.
Yeah.
Which was very interesting and very striking for a Hellraiser movie. There is a brief cameo by Heather Langenkamp from Nightmare on Elm Street fame. She's under some heavy old age makeup.
I'm glad you said that, because I'm like, what happened to her? She didn't age well. I just saw her in something recently, like an interview or something. I'm like, she didn't look like that. What happened?
No, yeah, she plays the landlady, so be on the lookout for her. She's very briefly on screen. In fact, I had to go back and look for her after I had watched the film, because I somehow like completely glossed over.
It seemed almost like they cut that scene short too. Like there was more of her in it. Like it seemed like they
she had like top
cut.
billing.
Yeah,
not like one of the top billings. So of course that was probably to get the horror fans to tune in too.
Yeah,
I'm sure. But I'll have to say, I really enjoyed this one for the most part, and the new Pinhead, I actually really liked him.
Yeah,
I mean, after Revelation, I was ready to just rip into this new guy playing Pinhead. But I was dead wrong. He actually did a really good job.
Yeah, no, I mean, of course, Doug Bradley obviously will always be Pinhead to the world, but you know what? It's like this is definitely not as big of a step down as you would think for someone else playing the role. Apparently, I know according to this other guy, the Bob from Craft Service dude, he was like the worst you can get. So at least they got a guy that was somewhat on par with Doug Bradley.
Well, I mean, if you look at it, even without the makeup, he kind of has the same facial structure.
He does. If you look at IMDb, it's like not. Yeah, they're kind of like, oh, okay, I can see why they cast him. Yeah.
And the other thing I really liked about the Pinhead character in this one, and not only that there was more of him, thank you, but that he kind of had the feel of like this really. You got the feeling that he was this really powerful Cenobite demon thing, and that he was. I guess he had more weight or something in this one. He had more, not like the Revelation one that literally had more weight in terms of chubbiness. This guy had like more gravitas or whatever you want to call it. No, he seemed more evil for some reason, and
he like had an agenda, and like he doesn't care. Like in the other ones, it like seemed like he was easily kind of pushed off his target or whatever he wanted to do. This one, he's like, he didn't care who got in his way. He was still doing what he set out to do, which I liked. Kind of give him some balls, really.
Yeah, and I've seen really mixed reviews on this one. Some people hated it, and I don't know. I thought it was I thought it was kind of a nice reset for the franchise. You had a guy that I could see him playing playing Pinhead again. I would have no problem with that.
Yeah.
I thought he was he's not Doug Bradley, but he's pretty darn good.
Yeah.
And I like the direction they're taking the character. I like the stylistic choices they made with the gore and stuff. So I don't know. I kind of like this new direction.
Yeah. I mean, they had some, like that whole opening sequence was super uncomfortable, but in like the good way of like that, it hit what it intended to do. And it just had a lot of weird imagery, like that little heavyset guy coming in and he literally dining on the paper that the guy typed up, and the whole thing how he was typing while the guy was, it just had this whole really cool, you were like, it was something you didn't see yet as far as I'm concerned. It had a total different feeling than all the other movies.
I think to me, having read some Clive Barker, to me it more closely matched what I felt maybe Clive Barker's imagination was in terms of the extremeness of the horror, because you don't really, like I said, you get kind of a Halloween version of it in the earlier movies, but this felt more realistic, like a more realistic version of hell, where it really is like this gritty, dark, terrible, ugly place with these creatures that are just too horrendous to even imagine.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I kind of liked it. But so that goes through the rest of the series. Brian, what's your overall thoughts about the entire franchise as a whole now that you've seen all 10 movies?
See,
9.
Yeah, 9. I missed it. Yeah, I mean, overall, it's like, like this is the first time I guess I've seen, not counting Revelations, all of them. I guess going back through, I remember I definitely remember seeing the first 3 before this series, and I think maybe I might have seen one of them. out of the sequels. I don't even remember which one. I just remember seeing another one later on, like that was on cable once or something. But overall, I think it was like, I like the series and I like the premise. I wish it would have gone in a different way in some of those lesser sequels, because it does detract from, from an overall great premise of a series. But that doesn't mean that, like, I still, like, will put this as, like, I would recommend this series to watch. Now, and the good thing about it is, and the best thing, actually, I should say, about that you could do when you do recommend this is you can actually have people say, you obviously tell them to watch the first 3. And then you could actually tell them, here's the ones to watch after that, and you're still okay. And you can still enjoy the series. You don't have to watch everyone, which is pretty good, because they're really not in any kind of, order. Like, I tell them to I tell them absolutely watch the first 3. I probably even tell them to watch Bloodline because of the whole, the history lore, thing and the lore. I tell them to do HELLSEEKER, because then obviously it has Ashley Lawrence back in it. And I'd say, depending on the person, if I know them, I would probably recommend HELLWORLD too, because that's just a fun one. And then I tell them to go and definitely watch Judgment. And I think you could get a taste of the series. You could see why it's so loved with that handful of movies. Now, I'm sure people out there are like, what are you talking about? Why you like that one and not put this one? But you know what? I'm just going by what.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be honest. I'm not going by what other people think of the rankings. That's just personal opinion, and everybody, that's great. Yeah, I'm happy when I go into a series expecting complete garbage, and I end up finding, out of most of these movies, except for possibly Revelations, I found something to like in every one of them.
Yeah.
And some I like more than others, obviously, as we've discussed, but it was not the torture and pain and suffering that I was expecting.
No,
going in. I had a good time going through this series again.
Well, yeah, I mean, I always do anyway for because it's fun for the podcast, because I look forward, because I watch these and I look forward to to talking with you about it, and hearing what the listeners will come back, because we've had some listeners write to us say, well, why'd you said this, but what do you think? You really, or we get some ones that say, hey, I like what you said about that, and it's like like hearing that, so it's kind of fun for me anyway, and that's what keeps me going through no matter what we're watching, so
right. Yeah, and if you're out there and just completely think HELLWORLD sucked and you want to tell us why, like, I'd definitely write us on Twitter or Facebook, or even send us an email. Like, I would love to hear your opinion, even if you disagree with us violently. I don't care. I think it's fun to be challenged on what we think, because you might give me another perspective on it.
Yeah, because sometimes, and this is not an easy series to watch, because there's a lot of convoluted plot points in there, and it sometimes, when they like some of the ones that, that we discussed, that the lesser sequels, kind of take you out of it. So maybe you miss something because you're concentrating on the distraction of the really non-Hellraiser story element. So, it'd be not, it's for someone who's maybe more like an expert of the series, it'd be fine to hear, I'd love to hear like another, viewpoint of it too. So do you want to hear my ranking, Tim, just to see what where?
Yeah, let's go with it. Let me go. I don't have a ranking that I've done, but I'll see if I have any differences from what you would say. So.
Now I know probably people are gonna disagree with my number 1, but it's because, and I've said that I liked it the most, and we already kind of went through this the last time, but I put Hellraiser 3 as my number 1, and I know people are probably, it's blasphemy to some people, but I had said why I liked that. It was really where, for the first time, I thought you really got like a Pinhead kind of took over this movie and just kind of, like went out, and I liked that they were just, he's just killing people, in that scene in the disco or whatever that was, the club, I loved. And so I and it still kept the part of the original story lines going through. So that's my number 1. Number 2 is funny enough, is Hellbound, Hellraiser 2, which we love. And 2 and 3 are very close, by the way. I should say that. And a lot of my rankings, it's funny, the ones right next to each other could possibly go either way, depending on the like, maybe if I rewatch this later on, I may feel differently, but this is my ranking based on this now, after finally seeing all of them, give the exception of Revelations. Number 3 is the original, I think. Number 4, I put HELLSEEKER because, like, again, Ashley Lawrence is back, and it definitely jumped up because it was a welcome to see her back in it after seeing Inferno. Then I put HELLWORLD behind it, and then Judgment at 6. So 5 and 6, though, I think are really, like, possibly interchangeable for me too. I'm gonna stick with it for now, and that's where we're going, just because I put this ranking as I was watching them, so it kind of had there's a method to my madness here. And number 7 I have Deader, number 8 Bloodline, number 9 Inferno, and number 10 I put Revelations because I didn't see it, and and from what you told me, I'm probably not going to like it. So I can almost guarantee it. I mean, if you're actually bashing it more than Inferno was, then I can't imagine it not being at the bottom of my list as well.
All right. Well, while you were saying that, I was also kind of thinking about my ranking. So I'm going to go with my ranking. And this is just gut. This is a very fast, on-the-fly ranking. So for the most part, I agree with you pretty much. I had number 2 as my favorite, which I'd already said. I'm going to go with number 1 as my second. Because it's a classic. Yeah. I just can't put it in the third place spot. I'm going to go with number 3 as my third. I'm going to pull a fast one on you here, Brian.
Uh-oh.
I'm going to go with Bloodline as my 4th.
Wow.
I'm going to go with Bloodline as my 4th. And the only reason why is because I did enjoy the lore behind the Cube, and I thought it fits well with the core trilogy of having a lot, because the rest of these movies, a lot of them just don't tie in at all. So I'm gonna put Bloodline way up there. It could be fifth. Yeah. Behind HELLSEEKER. I had HELLSEEKER right behind it. So you could probably interchange those two. But I'm not really doing it for the movie so much as I am the premise of the movie.
Right.
I then had, again, this one swaps back and forth between HELLWORLD and Judgment, because I liked both of those, but they're so very different. I don't know. I enjoy Judgment, but it's so brutal. Would I want to watch it over and over again as I might HELLWORLD? I don't know.
Yeah.
So those two kind of jump back and forth for me. Then I would put Deader and Inferno, and then finally Revelation.
Yeah. Yeah, and I should say, I think I might have said it, but between 7 and 8, Deader and Bloodline, they could alternate too. I said it, like, a lot of them could easily flip-flop based on second viewings.
My 4, 5, and my 6, 7 could definitely flop around. 4, 5, 6, 7 are just kind of a jumble. It would depend on my mood that day.
Yeah, so it's hard. It's a hard series to rank for that reason. It's each of them are like they're different enough that it like and it's such a it seems like it's a very divisive thing to discuss in terms of, like, when you see fans, because I see people like on the IMDb rankings and reviews, like, you'll get literally a 10-star followed by a 1-star, 10 out of 10 or 10 out of 10, and then a 1 out of 10 right next to each other. It's hilarious. It's like,
well, it's one of those movies that it's just so hard to pin down. Like, I think people expect different things out of what they get because it's such an open-ended. It's not like a typical formula for a movie, so there's so much room for that kind of interpretation of what you want to get out of it that it's just all over the map. But hey, at least we gave a crack at it. If you guys want to feedback and give us your rankings, that'd be awesome. It'd be interesting to compare what we thought, if we're way out of line or if we're kind of close.
I'm sure there are some people that think we're way out of line.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, based on what I've read.
Yeah.
So what was our beer pairing this week?
Right. So I figured, like we did with the where we broke up the points in the 2 weeks. I think they definitely define a they deserve their own beer pairing. So I went with this one. This is probably mostly in theme of watching Inferno and Tim's viewing of Inferno and Revelations. The beer is called My Personal Hells. Which is the Hell's Lager. And it's from South Street Brewery in Charlottesville, Virginia. And they actually did, at one point, I found, they brewed a beer called Cenobite. So they must have some fans of this series behind them at the brewery. So, and it's 5.2%, so it's on the light side. It's a light, smooth, crisp, hazy, pale yellow, floor malted Pilsner malt. And then it's got Vienna and dark Munich malts and Hallertau Mittelfrüh hops, which there's another one that stumped me on the hops. I've never heard of those hops. And it also, and whatever this is, Augustiner Brau Lager Yeast. So essentially it's a Hell's Lager. And it's, so I don't know, I'd give it a try just because basically anything I put on the beer pairing, I would give a try. Usually I try not to put something that sounds disgusting or anything.
Yeah,
So.
it doesn't look like it wouldn't be my first choice at a restaurant or anything,
right.
but it's, I'd give anything a shot. So yeah, that's interesting. And our 6 Degrees of Decapitation last week, we asked you to connect Ashley Lawrence to, Joey Lawrence.
That's actually what I said when I watched Inferno. I'm like, whoa. But no.
So Ashley Lawrence was in Mikey with Whit Hereford, and Whit Hereford was in Hot List with Joey Lawrence. So if you've seen all those movies, yeah, my hat's off to you. I've never heard of either of those.
Yeah, Mikey I've heard of. Isn't that the one with Mike with the little girl, I think? Wait a minute. Let me see. Oh, but Whit Hereford was in, it looks like Whit Hereford was in Nightmare on Elm Street. Oh my god, you know who Whit Hereford is? That's the kid from Nightmare on Elm Street 5, Jacob. And he was the kid in Jurassic Park, remember the one they scared?
Oh, okay.
That's Whit Hereford.
Okay.
I knew his name sounded familiar.
Mikey is from 1992.
Yeah, it's with the little kid, right?
It's a horror film, though.
Oh, it is? Then maybe I'm thinking of a different one. Okay.
Yeah, it's a horror film. I never heard of it. Interesting. Yeah, so this week, Brian's back on his naming gig again, but we're going to ask you to connect Dean Winters to Shelley Winters.
and shocking, you could do that in 2, even though they're like 30 generations apart.
Yeah, who knows? It's amazing. So anyway, well, next week I am so excited for this series. We are doing the Psycho series, which is of course Psycho, Psycho 2, Psycho 3, Psycho 4, The Beginning. I have not seen these films in so long. I can't even tell you what 2, 3, and 4 are about because it's been so long ago that I've seen them.
Actually, it's funny. 2 was just on. It was on cable the other day.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
It was on. With Meg Tilly's in that one.
But Psycho is one that we had been kicking around as a milestone episode forever.
It's the only reason we haven't watched it yet for the show.
It's one of my favorite movies. I love that movie. Backwards, Forwards is one of my favorite of all time. I cannot wait to rewatch it again. And in honor of Psycho, we're doing the first part of our Summer Slaycation will just be Psycho. We are not going into the sequels. The sequels will save for their own segment because we didn't feel like we needed to dilute our Psycho episode with Psycho 2.
Right, yeah.
As good as Psycho 2 is.
Yeah, it's just not fair. It's too much of a... That was like the compromise we made amongst ourselves, basically, as we did. It really should have been... We should have done this as a milestone episode, but, we knew it was going to come up on one of the Slaycations, and so we're like, you know what? That's how we'll compromise it. We'll give it its own, so it still has its own big episode, and then we'll continue with the Summer Slaycation.
Yeah, and this is a short series, so I think we can pull that off pretty handily. We could talk about 3 movies in an epised. We just did 7, so God.
Oh my God, 3 is nothing.
Yeah, this will be nothing. This will be easy.
And you got some good horror cred through the sequels too. You got, and especially you got and do you remember The Beginning, Psycho 4 The Beginning, which had Olivia Hussey in it, which was
right,
just, that's like, to me, that's horror icon just from Black Christmas.
There's a documentary I want to track down by Rob from the Shockwaves podcast. Actually created a documentary on the Psycho films that I've been meaning to find. If I find that one, I'll try to let you know, Brian. So that might be something good to watch before the as we're doing the or watching the movies for the series. Might maybe get some good information there. From the
cool. Okay.
So, yep. So, we'll see you guys next week. I hope you enjoyed our Pinhead coverage. Yeah, if you feel like marathoning those, more power to you. We've done it. We survived, so you can do it too. And we'll see you back here next week for Mr. Norman Bates.
Yes, and happy Friday the 13th.